back in the studio with very little time to have a chat with each other beforehand in advance and prepare for anything, but with Daniel Casson from Casson Consulting.
Good to meet you.
Welcome, Daniel. Do you want to tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Okay, yes. I'm an independent consultant in digital transformation and innovation in social care. So until 4 years ago, I was head of business development at Jewish Care, came out of that and saw the opportunities for real innovation. Things need to change in care, and that's where I am, talking to people about what's new, but what achieves value for people. That's where I am.
So obviously, tech is a complicated thing, right? Well, not necessarily. I suppose it's a thing, something that people are intimidated by. Can you give me a sort of good example of something that someone's implemented that's really made a difference to people's lives or teams' lives or something like that?
I mean, I'm not on the books, but I can talk about one I love, which I've just seen, seen over the past couple of years, is Familio. Because that involves...
we love Familio as well,
It's just so interesting, because it's talking about community as well. So it's going back to old style values, traditional values, involving the family and people in care. Because we have to get away from it being a transactional basis. If we're talking about quality of life, people don't live in isolation. So for me, that's a simple idea, very difficult to set up and get going, but I think that's one of the issues, that's one of the things, it's going to be simple to use for the end user, for the people, for the person living in a care home, for the family and relatives, and for people who are caring and supporting. That's where simplicity in everything. So KISS, keep it simple, stupid, is one of my mottos.
And I think, and that works in everyday life in the same way that if you try and implement a complicated system in your house, like for organising something, it doesn't work. People don't engage with it.
You won't do it unless it's simple for you to do. And that's why people, for example, different systems linking in with each other. An interesting one, there's been a push by the NHS to push digital transformation in social care. And they're doing it very responsibly, I've got to say, in the Transformation Directorate. And at the same time, there's an initiative going on in the NHS about remote monitoring care homes. And what care home providers are saying to us, to me and my colleagues, is we're having to input data here into our digital social care record, and we're also having to input data here into our remote monitoring system. Why aren't the two speaking? So we're at a very immature stage at the moment, where all this technology has got to come together. It's a developing market. It's so exciting. There's people from Norway, Sweden, Denmark, from the United States, from Australia, who want to be involved in the UK now. Yeah. It really is exciting.
It definitely seems like that now's the moment, and the physical technology is available to do these things, right? Like the iPad, the computer, the things that you can buy that work well and aren't, don't cost the world, and you can use to implement systems. Whereas, 5 years ago, even stuff like that was still a bit clunky. I think now the hardware is really there. But then sometimes even simple things like just having enough Wi-Fi in your home and stuff like that can really trip people up, can't it?
I mean, this is what I think one of Jeremy Corbyn's greatest initiatives was actually free Wi-Fi. I think that would, and it was, I wouldn't agree with totally everything, but that was one of the great things which will push the drive for value for people. But we're now more, in the past 5-6 years, everyone is used to using tech in their everyday lives. So what we're using in care has to mirror that development. And one thing I'm interested in is whether consumer tech, things that you and I use every day, is actually going to make its way into care. Interesting, on the Fitbit type of, the smartwatch Fitbit type technology, they always use the advertising, someone out running and measuring the heart rate and stuff like that. They don't really see the full value of that, of actually monitoring people, giving people the best quality of life possible. That's what it's about for me, quality of life.
Yeah, and monitoring's not about keeping an eye on somebody, it's about enabling them to be independent, right?
And I read yesterday a definition of someone who works in care. Someone who works in care is trying to give people independence. And that was a real eye-opener. It took me back. What we're doing is trying to give people as much independence as possible. And if we can do that with technology and innovation, that's my goal.
And we talked a lot this morning already about those little things, those little bits of dignity that you can enable people. So someone was saying about making sure someone's glasses are clean. That actually just tiny little things can really mess someone up who's is living with dementia, right?
It's that human interaction. So if the innovations that we put in place can actually give someone caring and supporting someone more quality time with them, because one thing I'm worried about, York, I'll tell you, one thing I'm more concerned about is the money is still within the NHS, within the health systems. And if we work to NHS targets, we won't always be working to the best quality of life for the person. So my appeal to care providers is, have as your focus the quality of life of the individual, and then everything will follow. Innovation has to focus around that.
Well, I definitely think NHS is about fixing people, and then the care is about caring. And there's a very different momentum, idea behind that. But
the two are coming together, though.
Yeah.
For example, I'm a governor at the Alder Hay Hospital in Liverpool, and one of the things they're doing is reaching out to community with mental health, with actually keeping people out of hospital is becoming the norm. Yeah. Lord Nigel Crisp does a lot of this. Hospitals are for repair, homes are for living. And we've got to create homes for living. And that's why the retirement living movement in the UK is so important.
Is there one simple innovation or idea or something you could share today that people could... So we've talked a lot, a new phrase for today is low-cost innovations. Do you have any ideas? So we've had things like using Spotify, using stuff that people have shared on different platforms, like Dignity training. Have you got something?
Low-cost innovation. You really put me on the spot here, York.
I have. I'm sorry. I can feel for you if you need a little bit of time to think. There's ponies here. Did you know about the ponies?
Ponies?
But, I mean, that's probably not that low cost, but that you can have horses, ponies come to your homes.
I mean, the therapy dogs we know about. For me, it's actually, it's low cost. It's a bit technological, but it is mental health support for people online. Sorry, I know it's not as low cost and as simple as you want, but it's actually being able to check in, because mental health was so much more attuned to that now. So what's the opening? The real opening for me is actually monitoring people's mental health, be that people caring for people, workers, and people being cared for. And then that leads on to so much conversation. So
is there a good website app you know of, that you can point people in the direction?
I can't, there's a few.
There is a few. I've got a couple
and I'm
in
not
mind.
Going to mention anyone in particular.
Okay, so but I think looking to open the conversation about mental health, give people the opportunity.
And I think the value that will create and the quality of life that will help create is the big, is the next frontier for me.
Lovely, right. Well, thank you very much for coming to see us, Daniel.